Cool. I think it's about time we get started. Let's just see. Bran flakes and shreddies. Don't fancy a coffee right now. That's fine. We're really inclusive here at the Coffee Morning. Everyone is welcome, cereal and all. So yeah, to kick things off, thank you everyone for attending. So we have with us here today myself and Akash from the Cyber Lounge and from West Point Cyber Talent. Akash is one of our cybersecurity consultants who, many of you might have spoken to on the phone. So thanks for coming, Akash.
No worries. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I've got myself a special West Point coffee representing the brand. Hope everyone's doing well.
And of course, we have Stephanie here with us, who has actually been on your side of the Cyber Lounge more than once, and we got to speak in, so we decided to bring Stephanie on. So welcome to welcome to your first Cyber Lounge event, Stephanie.
Thank you, and I appreciate you having me.
Awesome. So we did just want to give a quick shout out to Rich, who actually did turn up yesterday. He was a day early and was waiting to join. So we're super happy to hear that people are keen on being part of the Cyber Lounge and the events. So shout out to Rich for that. So let's just get started. So the first piece of news I've seen, and it's something we talked about before, or at least written about before, is sort of consequence of people fighting back against cyber attacks and what that means. So there was a recent attack against Millerville University. It was on February 28th, and quite a lot of the services went down, and they sort of really tried to fight back against it. You hear some of these ransomware stories where they pay up the ransom, or they kind of take a big hit, and then you see some people, they reject this and they try and fight back. So we actually wrote a blog about this on our website about it's Chatham County, and they tried to reject the ransom, and this ended up in the data just being dropped straight to the dark web. So have you guys seen this news?
Yeah, I have. I mean, it's one of those things with ransomware, isn't it? Even if you pay, it doesn't mean that they're going to release your data, and it's already been compromised. So certainly I'd say you have to treat it, it's a breach. You've got to, treat it as one, and just expect that if you just go ahead and try and pay for it, it doesn't actually solve all your problems.
Yeah, and it's a really difficult thing. It's like, you can pay and get your systems back, or you can try and fight against them. It's what is the right thing to do? And I mean, you see a lot of different opinions on this, but it's hard to say. I mean, can you really give an accurate answer unless you're the business whose services are down? I mean, this was a university, so there was a quote from one of the students, Emily Bridges, who said, "I'm learning 3 different software in my classes and we couldn't do our work for 2 weeks. Now we're behind and the professor wants work done ASAP. I've been staying up late to catch up." Whilst another student, Emily Livingston, said, I kind of need to be registered so I can find out where I'm student teaching and some other things about a course. But essentially, it's just causing such a massive disruption to so many people and students. And at a time like the current situation that we're in, can businesses afford to have so much downtime?
I mean, I'd love to see, if anyone in the chat knows of this, like any data about how many ransomware attacks, happen where they actually pay the ransom, they release it, how many pay and they don't release it, how many, either pay or reject it, but their information still goes on the dark web. It'd be lovely to see, that data presented, so you could actually use that to inform people. Certainly, I would never say pay the ransom. I did work for the Cyber Resilience Centre for Greater Manchester for a little while, and that was an initiative with Greater Manchester Police. And again, they said, you know, if you pay the ransom, you actually are fueling the crime itself. So yeah, it'd be a really interesting piece of information if that could be released.
I mean, that too, you're absolutely right in that you're basically rewarding the hackers for hacking you, and that's not counting the downtime, any data stolen, all the sort of PR and stuff you're going to do, you have to do afterwards to sort of regain the trust of your customers. It's like when someone breaks into your house, I guess I don't know, you don't reward them for it. You want them to be, you want your stuff back, and you want to be compensated for that, not the other way around. I'm not sure if that's the best metaphor. I'm not really the best at coming up with these metaphors on the Cyber Lounge, so maybe I won't try anymore. But yeah, so they also mentioned here that the university receives 9 million cyber intrusion attempts daily. I don't think there's nothing clear here about how the actual breach happened and what caused it. But with 9 million attempts daily, it's not hard to imagine that just this one slips through, and that's more than enough in most cases to just take down the university as a whole, almost.
Yeah, definitely. I read a blog recently as well about 15 UK schools being attacked, or successfully attacked, by one lone threat actor as well. So certainly I read stuff about that last year when the pandemic first came about, and obviously there was a big surge. But yeah, I mean, it's still ongoing. You know, it's quite almost shocking, isn't it, that, you know, we're in 2021 now. It's been a year since the outbreak, but education's still suffering.
Well, we talked last week about how it seems that there was a kind of ceasefire of sorts from hackers in terms of the healthcare industry, and then they pretty much broke that and went straight for healthcare preschools. It led to one of the first recorded deaths in cyber as a result of a cyber attack last year, and it just seems like they're really given no quarter at this point. They're just going for whoever they can, and the easiest targets typically the most vulnerable. We have a comment here from a LinkedIn user. Sorry, it's not showing whoever's name this is. It might be because they have a private profile. And they said previously that, precisely that, Stephanie, pay up and the adversary is rewarded for holding you to ransom. In my opinion, take the reputational hit and starve the attacker. The money you don't spend, invested in training and management, and attempt to mitigate the potential for future attacks. Now, yeah, I mean, I think I'd have to agree with this in that you're not, I mean, just by holding out against the attack, you might take a huge reputational hit and you might lose, money, but I guess you're going to lose money either way if you pay the hackers, and then you're just going to encourage the same behavior. I don't know. I'd actually be interested to see, in the cases, I'm not sure if this is what you mentioned earlier, but in cases where the actual ransom is paid, how many follow-up attacks are there on that business, and do they become more of a target from now on?
Yeah, again, I don't know the stats, but I've certainly read up that you go on the suckers list per se, and so hackers can actually kick you when you're down as well. So it could be a double whammy in terms of you pay the ransom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we all know, there are so many different precautions and things that you need to take to prevent this in the first place. But in a lot of cases, it seems like dealing with it once it's happened is an area that so many businesses need to expand on. And I guess it's good to see that in this instance, they didn't cave and they held out, even if that has been troublesome or damaging for some of the students and obviously the staff and so on. I guess now it's a case of how do they mitigate that damage. Maybe it's a question for for someone else.
Yeah, I think it's extremely important that you take a step back and actually try and analyze how the ransomware actually got into the system. So I think that there's obviously all that money that you could be paying to the ransomware, like that person in the comment said. I think you should just invest that into training, ensure that everyone that you're onboarding, whether that's a university or into a business, is aware of all these phishing scams, the consequences of a ransom attack. So I think once your information is out there, there's no guarantee that it's going to be deleted. Let's be honest, they're not going to delete your data, are they? They're probably going to get the money off you for the ransomware, and they're going to sell your data again, so they're doubling their money. So I think I definitely agree with that comment as well. Instead of paying up, just invest that money into training to try and avoid an occurrence like that again. Because like you said, Adam, you're just fueling the fire there if you're paying them, because who knows that, how do you know that they're not going to try and repeat the attack again?
Yeah, and then you end up out of pocket and in a far worse situation.
Yeah, I would also say there's a lot of work to be done to sort of show, especially say small to medium businesses, that there's no shame or embarrassment or guilt in being a victim of a cyber attack. I imagine a lot of people panic and pay a ransom because they think, oh, how have we let this happen? I don't want anyone to know. I'm so ashamed of it. And it's not the case. These are professional con artists. The end of the day, you can have some of the best controls in place, but they can just slip through. And so he's, invested in training, and actually, effective and engaging training so people understand the threats, understand the problems, so that they want to actually take action. But also creating a culture where you do want to report incidents and you can openly put your hands up and say, this happened, and we're actually doing our very best to recover it in a very digitally dangerous world.
Absolutely, yeah. Not reporting something. I mean, some of these attacks are within systems for up to years, in some cases that I've read, probably even far longer before they're actually discovered. So someone not reporting it for even a week, it just allows the damage to continue even further, and it really has to get out there, and you really do have to take that reputational hit. I mean, and it kind of reminds me of something I read on LinkedIn, and I can't remember who it was that wrote this. I think it was one of the big names in cyber, and it really rung true with, or it really struck a chord with me rather, because we'd been writing blogs and stuff about different cyber attacks, and it's so easy to blame the company, and it's so easy to fall into this pattern of it's their fault. They should have done this. They shouldn't have trained. They should have. But really, by blaming them, you only encourage the bad behavior of not reporting things, because then you're not giving anyone any incentive to actually come forward if all you're going to do is sort of attack them, when really the victim, they and the customer's data or client's data who's been stolen, and the employee's data, and all of these things, that those are the victims, and they're the last people we should be blaming in these circumstances.
Yeah, for sure. I think if any organization can show they've took risk management seriously, and this happened to be a mistake, then yeah, I think there needs to be support there, rather than creating a culture of not actually speaking up and being honest about what's happened.
Definitely. So sort of conscious of time here, we tend to talk a lot on the Cyber Lounge about these topics, very interesting things. So we'll jump into the next one, which is a really interesting article I read, and it kind of is very relevant to us as a business. It's Build Your Cybersecurity A-Team, 7 recruiting tips. So I thought, this is one of the reasons I brought Akash on today, obviously as a consultant. So let me just share now with you. So everyone should be able to see that now. So one of the first tips is something that I've seen a lot about on LinkedIn recently. It's about looking beyond the usual places. And we've talked about this on here before about, the ridiculous requirements for as entry-level roles, people asking for multiple years of experience, and it pretty much comes across as ridiculous to everyone that reads it, especially those who are trying to find entry-level jobs. So I really wanted to hear your thoughts on this, Stephanie.
It's quite interesting because I've never actually applied straight away as a security specialist. So what I am now is I'm training to become a risk analyst. So I work in tech, work for Linten Technologies as a marketing manager, but also working with businesses with cybersecurity training. So it's really sitting down with them and just helping them to understand the cyber threats and specifically around their organization. So I'm doing an apprenticeship to become a risk analyst, and that is with CyberPro. So I think, I read an article by the BBC yesterday about, I think they've actually worded it as it's a catastrophe that a lot of people are sort of leaving school without tech skills, and there's going to be a huge sort of gap in talent with tech. So I think this is where I think apprenticeships are really useful because it helps people who may have not gone into tech previously, because I personally didn't train in tech, to actually do a career change. So I think, again, if organizations are sort of asking too much of people or they're actually putting people off, is that it's sort of adding to the problem. It's sort of making it really undesirable to actually work in tech if you kind of feel like you're actually inadequate when you're actually, applying for it. And it's not the case, especially in security. I think you need a diverse range of skills, like especially in cyber, it's huge range of skills depending on which role you go for.
So we ran a webinar with Meredith Patton about diverse skills in cyber. Meredith from Protection Group International. And we talked a lot there about you can train these technical skills. Not everyone is technical, for example. And it's about finding someone who has those right, I think she didn't like the term soft skills, but it's the best way to sort of describe it, I suppose. And it's especially with what's going on recently in the cyber industry, it's so important to bring in like motivated, talented people, even if it requires training them. But it takes I guess it feels like a risk for a lot of businesses to bring these people on, which is why they're requesting such ridiculous requirements. I don't know about you guys, but I see so many people every day who are clearly highly motivated, posting multiple times a day about cyber, talking about their journey to get a job. Every so often, one of them does, and it's such a huge deal to them, and they seem like, if only there were more internships, apprenticeships, chances for them to start their career, would the amount of successful cyber attacks fall? Probably.
It's interesting. I'd like to know why they feel it's a risk, because certainly in other areas of businesses, you would take people on and train them. So it's interesting to understand why they would think cybersecurity is different.
Yeah, I don't know if that's something about the industry, and I'd love to hear that from, I guess, hiring managers, people who make those decisions. Akash, you speak to a lot of hiring managers. What are your thoughts on this?
I totally agree with you, to be honest. We get a lot of requests from hiring managers that they require a candidate with a certain specific niche skill, which, as you're aware, there's a massive skill gap in the market at the moment. We usually recommend to them, why don't you hire someone of a little bit of a lower level and train them up? It's going to cost you less, and you're going to be able to develop that talent how you want it to be. I'm not too sure why they are quite persistent with, having people with a certain skill set when they could potentially just hire someone that's that's a raw talent, and you can broaden their knowledge to however is required for that business. I think that's certainly something that I can pick up with some of my hiring managers, look at their thoughts on that, and we could have this as another talking point in another coffee morning. That'd be really good.
That would, yeah, it'd be great to bring someone on and just someone who actually believes that it should be done that way, and just ask them why. Maybe strike up a debate that could even be quite an interesting panel, because we were talking about doing a sort of webinar panel with quite a range of people across cyber, and talking about getting into cyber, why it's such a challenge, what people can do about it, just different perspectives from a bunch of different people. And we're hoping to do that in the future, but as you can imagine, getting 6 or 7 people from different countries all in one call at one time is a challenge. So hopefully we'll be bringing that to you. I mean, let us know if that's something you would want to see, or something you would want to be a part of, anyone, and maybe we'll step that one up.
Yeah, I think also, excuse me, businesses at the moment are looking for quick fixes. So they're looking for people to come in and make an impact straight away. Obviously, with the COVID-19, that's had a massive impact on quite a lot of businesses, have suffered during that period. So at this moment in time, what we're seeing is there's not a lot of entry-level roles on the market, and all of the roles that I'm currently recruiting for, I know that they're really, really high level, senior levels, and it just my interpretation of that is that they're looking for someone to come in, make an impact straight away, and obviously generate revenue for the business.
Yeah, and that tends to be the thing. We actually have a comment here again from LinkedIn user. We can't see the name. As a newbie, the bar does look extremely high for a lot of positions, which very much is in line with what we're saying here. I have the OSCP and historically worked in IT, albeit with a variety of other roles between then and now. Many organizations appear to want 2 to 4 years of experience, whether you have the relevant certs or recent training, which is impossible to achieve without the first foot in the door. And that's the kind of ridiculousness of the situation. You've got the certs, you've got the training, you have relevant experience one way or another, but they require that really specific 2 to 4 years, and that's what's blocking so many people. Again, another comment here, and it might be the same person, we can't see. Many things in life can be taught. What is far harder to teach is motivation or natural aptitude for a subject. 100%. Yeah, you can't really agree with this anymore.
Just going back to that previous comment, Adam, it'd be interesting to see whereabouts you are based. So if you could please comment down and see which country you're from, or which location, because we could certainly try and give you some advice on where to focus on in terms of applying for new roles, etc. Because what we find is you've got to actively reach out to quite a lot of these hiring managers at huge firms, such as like your KPMGs, your EYs, because usually when they do have these entry-level roles, then they're not advertised on the job boards. What they typically do is they typically look at graduates from either universities or graduates from their cyber courses. So they don't usually advertise them. So I think that my best advice for you would be to reach out to the recruiters at these big firms and try and get some sort of advice from them, and maybe they could point you in the right direction.
Yeah, so I just double checked on LinkedIn. It's not coming up on our system, our streaming platform here, but it is Rich asking these questions. So yeah, I mean, Rich, like Akash said, get in touch. I've had a couple of what seem like good interviews lately. Oh, that's positive that you are getting through to the interview stage. I mean, that is a good sign in itself, especially that bodes very well for you. So I guess we've got a few more minutes left, so we just want to cover one topic, finally sort of round up here. So there was a BBC article that Stephanie actually sent over about how the UK is heading towards a digital skills shortage disaster, and we're all sort of aware of the skills shortage, but it just seems like things are heading in a far worse direction than we maybe anticipated before. So what were your thoughts on this, Stephanie?
Well, it's a bit of an oxymoron, isn't it? You have an article here saying, a huge skills gap and tech, and that's going to be disaster in the future. And then we have Richard on the chat saying, he finds it quite hard in terms of getting in, his foot in the door. So it sounds like there's a lot of work for employers to do. And also looking into if how they actually support people from an early age to get in the sector, but also people that want a career change. Speaking for myself, I absolutely love cybersecurity. I only started a year ago, and now I'm training for an apprenticeship, and I absolutely love it. It's like my calling in life. So that these opportunities need to be available for people all throughout their career.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be good to understand, Stephanie. Sorry, Adam. How you got onto your apprenticeship?
Yeah, sure. So I said I previously worked for the Cyber Resilience Centre in Greater Manchester, and that's a police initiative. So I started there as a marketing manager, completely new to the world of tech and cybersecurity, and it really opened my eyes. Again, I guess it's I've been in organisations previously that hadn't taken cybersecurity on board. So certainly for me, it was really interesting. So I was thinking, these organisations are actually quite vulnerable that I was working for, and I would have been part of the problem by not being aware. And then when I started my new role, I actually spoke to my MD about wanting to do an apprenticeship because I really wanted to become a risk analyst. And the person that teaches the risk analyst pathway for the apprenticeship, I've got a lot of admiration for. So that's Beverly McGowan. So it's lovely to actually be taught by someone that you actually, think is such a great thought leader in the industry.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Hopefully that helps anyone that's watching this. Gives them a bit of courage just to maybe pick up the phone and just drop someone an email. It just goes to show that even if you are doing something else like you were marketing and you found your passion, it is possible for others as well. So hopefully people could take a bit of inspiration from that.
Yeah, 100%. If anyone wants to drop me a message and ask, about my experience transitioning to cybersecurity, you're more than welcome.
Definitely.
That'd be fantastic.
So I guess before we finish up here, I just wanted to highlight a quote, or rather a fact. I'm just gonna again share my screen. Bear with me for 1 second from this BBC article. So you can see here, the Learning and Work Institute says the number of young people taking IT subjects at GCSE has dropped 40% since 2015. And honestly, I'm kind of shocked by this because we talk so much about how young people are more tech focused than ever before. I know when I was growing up, and I guess we were sort of in maybe one of the first generations to have computers in schools on a regular basis and really get to grips with them. And it seemed like that would continue, but to see that so many people are dropping IT as a subject, like 40% is a huge amount. And while people might be more in tune with social and how mobiles work, that's not going to clue them in on cybersecurity awareness. You're not going to learn how to protect your data from Instagram. And in fact, it's probably going to do the opposite. You're going to be oversharing. And we talked, I think it was last week, about about how phishing and how dangerous that can be.
Yeah, I would agree. It is quite shocking, and I'd love to know the reasons why. But like we've mentioned before, if the whole industry looks like it's very difficult to get into, I don't know what messages are being broadcasted in education at the moment, but if it doesn't look like a welcoming place to work, then why would you invest your time actually trying to train and actually enter it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of work to be done at that level. Like you say, it would be just awful if there was just an even wider gap than there already is now.
Hmm. I think that could certainly be something that I have a look into over the week and bring that to the next coffee morning, whether that's next week or the week after. But yeah, I think we're about done here. So I guess first of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone who attended. It's great having you here with us on our coffee/water/tea morning. Good luck to everyone who is looking for a cyber role. Rich, good luck with those interviews, especially. And of course, thanks to Stephanie and Akash for taking the time to join me on here. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you at the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Stephanie.